What's up guys, today we've got the Squad 44 devs and they've released an hour and 20-minute stream on Twitch detailing the upcoming Iwo Jima map and some of the things you can expect come release day. Here are some quick items of mention, followed by my editor's cut of all the juicy details. I'll also post the link to the Twitch video below if you want to watch the full version. So quickly of note for the Iwo Jima briefing, map size is 1:1 real life, Mount Suribachi is roughly 170 meters above sea level. The map will have 16-inch naval commander call-ins for the USMC, and they'll have a 320mm mortar call-in for the Japanese forces. Outside of this call-in, the Japanese forces will not have air support. The Japanese will also have access to over 150 gun positions and pillboxes. The Invasion Beach East playable area is 2.7 kilometers long and in parts 250 meters deep. The level has over 2,200 craters, and the map covers the south end of the island up to the Motoyama airport and a little bit beyond that. Mount Suribachi has a deep and extensive tunnel network, and the map has more dugout trenches than any other Squad 44 map. Almost every 3D asset that you'll find on the map is exclusively made, as almost nothing could be really used from the European theaters. There's also a fleet backdrop on the map featuring several battleships and aircraft carriers, among them the USS Iowa, Missouri, North Carolina, Enterprise, Lexington, and Wasp. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video.
Hello, hi everybody. Let's, start showing off these images of Iwo Jima.
Oh, here we go.
Here it is. So first look at the beach. When approaching Iwo Jima, how did you approach sort of treatment on first creating the map?
So the first creation of the map is like pretty straightforward. You try to get any kind of elevation and height data from whatever source you can officially get it. This is something we managed, but it comes with a caveat. The caveat is that you do not get digital elevation data for Iwo Jima in 1945. You get elevation data for Iwo Jima in the 2020s. The appearance of the island changed drastically in the last 80 years. Then you have to start looking at area reconnaissance photos and have to be like, okay, this coast part looked entirely different back then. So we have to hand model it to look more like it is supposed to look like. So it's a lot deeper compared to Utah. It has a lot more elevation, as you can tell from the picture. Like the back end of the beach has a lot more elevation going on. It's rising a lot higher. Let's focus on the area where the players will actually be able to run around.
Right.
That will be about 2.7 kilometers of beachside. We are looking at an incredible amount of reference photos we can get our hands on. And the biggest issue with having reference photos is you don't always know when they were taken. So are they pre-invasion? Are they at the time of the invasion? Are they after the invasion when the Americans already took the island over? Sometimes you can see, sometimes you can only guess. Which then leads to, yes, there are vast areas that are, like you show right now, like pretty desolate, destroyed, burned down. We have huge craters on the island, many craters on the island. But also, Iwo Jima is a lot greener than people think or people know from Hollywood movies. Like if you're watching any kind of mainstream media Iwo Jima, you're usually just seeing black sand, rocks, and that's it. That's Iwo Jima for them. If you look at actual images taken from the invasion, from the battles, you see like, oh, there's trees, like not big ones, but small ones, those screw pines. Oh, there's bushes. Okay. Oh, they had fields there. They even were like doing agriculture there to a certain degree, So there's a lot of interesting stuff going on actually that people do not know from mainstream media.
One sort of thing, I guess with level design, something that I sort of was thinking about earlier was, in a sense, you're also game designers because you're based on the landscape. That's how people are going to sort of attack certain points or use the landscape to its advantage. So is that sort of in thought too of like how are attackers and defenders going to approach certain parts of the landscape? Like how do you make that more even, or is that something that comes up as you're designing the landscape as well?
I mean, for the beginning part of it, you can't do too much about the landscape because it is Iwo Jima, right?
Right.
Like you can't change too much about it without the island losing what it is and what it represents. So the overall landscape has to stay as it is to stay true to reality, especially for a place like Iwo Jima where everybody knows the outline and the shape of the island. What is something that is significantly interesting is like for people that have played Iwo Jima and other games before, ours is 1-to-1 size. So it will feel way bigger than any iteration of Iwo Jima you played before because it is the real size.
And on this map, it's got every single trench, every single bunker position. Using that as well can obviously change dynamics of gameplay quite heavily, whilst not altering the actual terrain. So it's balanced to both sides. Everyone thinks it's going to be a curb stomp, but personally, I really don't think it's going to be a curb stomp. I think it's going to be really, really balanced.
Going into Iwo Jima, you would be thinking like, okay, the Japanese have the big volcanic mountain. They are gonna hold it. They are gonna shoot down at the Americans on the beach and just obliterate them. Then I was on the mountain myself after we created it. Yeah, there you can see it. Like that's the western flank of the mountain.
Right.
So then you're on top of the mountain and you look down to the beach and you start realizing you are not going to shoot anybody from up here. The
It's quite a distance.
It's way too big of a distance. Like not with a rifle, not with a machine gun, maybe with a big gun after 5, 6, 7 shots adjusting.
I was just going to say, like you said, we have been mapping the trench networks with an overlay that's based on a historical map, which had all the original defensive works marked out. So in a lot of areas, you may look at it and think that looks strange from like a game perspective, but it's generally what was actually there.
Right.
So once we kind of get that framework in place, that's when you kind of bring in the gameplay side of it. Of okay, I'll add some barrels here, I'll add this here, I'll add some rocks here. When it comes to objectives and approaching, directions and things, that's when you start to get into the game side of things and how to make it a little bit more easier to defend or attack, or a bit fairer in places.
We have points of interest on the map. Several key locations that are, well, to a certain military strategic value. At least we decided that they could be strategically valuable, like parts of the airfield, huge AA positions and whatnot. And those are being marked by us as points of interest. Points of interest means they will most likely become capture points. Depending on what layer or what game mode we're playing with them, they will be capture points, or they will be in frontline game mode, there will be objectives on those areas or whatever. And then when we start focusing on these areas that have like either huge blockhouses, AA gun positions, plane hangars, fuel storages, whatnot, if we start focusing on them, then it comes into place what Daxos just said, like about like looking at the different approaches.
So it is not the entire island that will be available on the map, but can you just sort of point out which area, just general areas that will be available on this map?
Yeah. So it will be the entire southern part of the island up to and a little bit beyond the airfield number 1, Motoyama number 1, which is the southern airfield.
Yeah, the big main one, yeah.
Which is, in terms of size, plenty. Trust me, it's a big map. It's a big map. Yeah. So the whole beach might be like 3.5 or 4 kilometers long. Where are you landing on the beach? Are you landing close to the volcano or the furthest point away from it? If of course you're landing the furthest point away from it, you're not going to storm the volcano at the beginning. You will have other objectives that you have to storm first and then work your way. Probably the volcano will be the last objective. If you're landing close to it, you might have one beach objective to overcome, and then you can go to the volcano, and then you have to get the rest of the map.
I've also noticed you are playing with a lot of different lighting treatments in these. So I'm assuming the lighting is going to be different depending on the layer, or?
Looking at actual photos, black and white photos, recoloring those photos to get an idea about like, okay, how much of the landscape is brown and how much is actually green and whatnot. That will give you an actually idea about what Iwo Jima really looked like. And I hope and I think we caught that very well.
Yeah.
I'm also seeing a question I'd like to answer, if that's
Sure.
okay. Will both nations have tanks? Yes.
Ooh.
Short answer is yes. If you look what equipment both nations brought to Iwo Jima or had on Iwo Jima, the Japanese also had some tanks there. Some of them in hull down, duck down positions, some of them not. I would say for the freedom of the players, we let the players, the Japanese players, use the tanks how they see fit. If they want to put them somewhere where they are hard to attack, fine. If they want to drive them around the island, waiting to be killed by a Sherman, fine.
When will it be released? It's coming. Iwo Jima, we're looking to release towards the end of this year. Are we getting any sort of background sounds? Will there be like a dogfight loop over the island or something similar? What's sort of the ambiance going to be like?
Players that are currently actively playing know that we added a lot more ambience and background sound to a lot of the maps. Basically, mostly battle sounds, artillery shells hitting afar. Some city maps have like the air raid warning sirens going on. I would say you can expect more or less the same, but more intense for Iwo Jima. Probably not air raid sirens. That doesn't make any sense. Like everybody knows the American fleet is right next door, and they are trying to invade the island. So you're not gonna stroll around out there like a casual day. You will already be in a bunker, but you will definitely have a lot of background sound of explosions, artillery shells, and whatnot. We are looking into giving more than that, having more happening. But that stays a secret
Right.
until we actually have it working.
Oh yeah, what would be sort of the time frame?
So time frame will definitely be early invasion, because that does make sense for where the map is placed on the island. Because we have the first 2 weeks of the invasion, if I remember correctly, are happening in the southern part of the island. So that will be the time frame. I personally think it would be nice to even have like the first moment, the first wave happening for the players. So when you play as a US Marine, you will be first boots on the ground. You will be the first platoon that hits the beach. Which also maybe helps us a little bit with getting you more safer off the beach if the Japanese are, by reasons, only able to start shooting after the Marines reach the middle of the beach like it was in real time.
Can we talk a bit more about defensive emplacements? Some maps have things like AT guns at the start. Do we get to tear into the Marines right out the gate with MGs? Or do things need to be built up?
As it's an invasion map and the Japanese are definitely defending, it would make sense for them to already have pre-placed guns ready to be used at any time. Given not all of them will be operational because the island got hit 3 days straight by the Navy. So you will have, you will definitely have gun positions where the gun is basically a smoking scrap heap. And you will have gun positions where the gun is still operational, and you can directly use it as soon as the timer ends and the round starts.
Cool. Just showing off is this a bunker, I'm assuming?
That's a machine gun bunker. Yeah,
Machine
that's
gun
a
bunker.
usual machine gun bunker.
This specific one looks out as you can. If you squint your eyes through the slit, you can actually see the fleet out there.
I can actually see an Iowa class battleship on the left.
Yeah, you just squint your eyes. But yeah, this one, I think it's like roughly middle down the beach. Like I said before, as we have used historical maps, these sort of bunkers, little machine gun pits, little like hidey hole machine gun pits, they're going to be everywhere. Obviously, some are kind of limited in their arc of view because of the nature of what it is. It's been more of an ambush thing rather than a full width defensive position like this, or an AA pit, an artillery pit, artillery bunkers, and so on, so on.
Something I believe you mentioned, Gunslinger, was that all the sort of bunkers, buildings, it's all from scratch. Like these are all new assets. Nothing's really.
Yeah.
It's all being created for
real
the Pacific.
fish.
Yeah, we can't basically take existing assets from other maps to a very, very big degree. We just can't because they don't fit. They don't work. Like Japanese had very, very distinctly different defensive positions. Even their trenches look a lot different than the trenches in the game right now. So we had to make a whole new trench set with like, I don't know, it's probably like 30 or 35 pieces now.
It looks amazing.
Yeah, lots of underground positions there, underground mortar positions and whatnot. Their barracks look entirely different. Their aircraft revetments look different. Yeah, there we have one with the netting over it. Yeah, it's like so many new environment assets that hopefully make you believe you're in a different theater of war and not just in Normandy again or whatever. Yeah, and I would even say it's not just that. For me, it's also important to keep in mind it's not a museum. We are not building a Iwo Jima museum for you to
Right.
walk around and marvel at. We are building a big sandbox for you where we want you to play in.
All right, we're coming to our last 4 screenshots, and these are all in the tunnels, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, let me maybe talk a little bit about what's going on with the tunnels. So it's very impossible to get any tunnel reference for Mount Suribachi itself.
Right.
At least for us and our Japanese-speaking researchers and whatnot, we were just able to get from other parts of the island, but not from Mount Suribachi. Yeah, supposedly we heard nobody has info on that because nobody is allowed in there even today because
Right.
it's all prone to collapse because the mountain got hammered so much.
Right.
So we basically just looked at how many tunnel references we could get. Realized the tunnels would be way too small to have actually good gameplay in them because the usual tunnels would be about 1.50 meters high or something like this and probably like 80 centimeters wide. So the gameplay inside of them would be absolutely horrendous and terrible. So I basically made the call and said like, okay, we need tunnels that players can actually freely move in and have gameplay happen and can take cover in and whatnot. Because otherwise you just have a long death tube, like a sniper at the end of it, and it will be zero fun.
Right. Yeah.
So now we have like a very elaborate, multi-layered tunnel network inside the volcano. Yeah, we made sure that you don't walk like for 5 minutes and end up in a dead end. Like if
Right.
there is a dead end, you will know after 10 or 12 seconds.
Right. Will we get anything like bonsai charge mechanics for the Japanese forces? I need to double check. I know Chuck has been working on like the melee weapons for the Japanese forces.
Yeah, but I would like to differentiate. The Japanese, of course, get certain melee weapons, where I won't go into further detail.
Right.
But if we want to keep the game consistent, you're not getting one button you can push and then your character just starts running super fast and screaming. That's
Right.
not gonna happen.
Right.
If you want to run and scream, you got a microphone, you got a headset.
You can do that.
Start screaming, start sprinting. Be your own Bandai charge.
When you get off the beach, I think the fights will be very close and very violent for very short periods
Yeah,
of time, if you get
yeah.
me.
Mm,
I mean, it will
There's a
go
lot-
quiet and you'll go like 100 meters and then it'd be completely violent again. So it's like very different.
There's a lot of destroyed, burnt out, bombed out ground that's filled with burnt out vegetation and craters that is intersected with trenches and rocks and things like that. So there's going to be points where you're just going to be bogged down in the thick of it and hell is unleashing around you, that kind of thing.
we
Yeah.
should talk about the commander call-ins for sure.
Yeah. So because it kind of fits to the island itself, it's very befitting for both factions to have like very specific call-ins or not have specific call-ins, which is also important. The Japanese will not have access to any air assets on the island. Doesn't make any sense. You've got 14 carriers right in the front porch. You're not starting a single plane under that conditions.
Right.
So yeah, no air assets for the Japanese, no strafing runs for the Japanese. Kind of makes sense. The Japanese, however, employed a 320 millimeter mortar on the island,
Yes.
which
Is it 323?
yeah,
Oh,
320. 320. I looked it up before the stream. Do not make a mistake.
Yeah.
So it's a 320 millimeter mortar that is being used by the Japanese that could become a commander asset, and also, I mean, you kind of just have to look out to the sea to get an idea what the Marines would call in as a commander asset, because they do not have deployed artillery guns anywhere. Their artillery guns are swimming and 16-inch. So yeah, let's just say like the USMC artillery column will be a little bit bigger than what you are used to. For anybody that's like super scared, like okay, this will be a super defender-sided map, and it will be very, very hard to even attack or get off the beach or whatever. There's a lot of stuff we can do in terms of balancing, and you have to keep in mind that we will try to focus the battles on certain areas because it's 1-to-1 Iwo Jima, but we just have 100 people to play with.
Right.
So we will have to try to focus those 100 people on certain areas to have enough action going on. But that also means that if one team spreads out very wide over the map, they will not be necessarily able to defend a point very well. And if they want to defend a point very well, they can't spread out very wide. So then the attackers could flank around. So like on all the other maps, flanking is king, and flanking will help you.
Iwo Jima will be the first map that's released in December. It is the whole content of the Pacific is going to be coming out over multiple updates, but the first one will be Iwo Jima.
I think people will really, really enjoy the new environment and a completely different type of gameplay, just because it's a different theatre, it's a different environment, it's different buildings, it's different layout. Obviously, we've always said about the changes, but Iwo Jima itself is a volcanic island, isn't it? Like we said, naturally it's quite rocky. I feel people will get a much different, what's one for, experience, just overall experience in comparison to what they're used to.
We want to give you at least like a cool cinematic experience of fighting one of the fiercest and most well-known battles of World War II. While also maintaining what makes Squad 44, Squad 44, being that it's more realistic, more strategic than, let's say, like a shooter where you just jump into an F4, crash on the volcano, jump out, and run into a tunnel, you know? One big challenge is that this map in particular has a big mountain in the middle of it, well, in the southern part of it, but it's a centerpiece nonetheless. Which means that you guys all want to run up that mountain and you want to watch and look around. So we have to deliver you a worthy view from that mountain that also still feels good, feels right, and not cheesy. And that's a difficult one because that's a long view range, making sure that you can't abuse that position too much for like artillery spotting or whatever, while also giving you some benefit when you're on top of that. And sticking your head out. So yeah, that's a tough one. In terms of map size, I can probably answer the rough size of the map is 5 by 4 kilometers, but a lot of that is water.
Right.
That's what you kind of have to keep in mind by 5 by 4 kilometers, that a lot of it is water. So the actual land mass, I'm just guessing right now, might be half of that.
But I think because of the elevation and hills and all that, I feel like it's going to feel a lot bigger. It seems massive when you're actually playing it, like huge, just because of the hills and the cliffs and the orchards and whatnot. And I think because of the difference in terrain you're going to feel here, it's going to be insane. Thinking about it, this map is absolutely gigantic compared to Utah as like a beach landing map in comparison. Like, it just feels so much bigger and so much more life in it.
So any sort of questions regarding like kits, weapons, all that sort of stuff, that's going to be for a future stream, guys. I'm going to do one about the actual kits for each of the factions. We're going to end it here, guys. Thank you so much.